the Chief Justice, the head of the Israeli Supreme Court, a lady named Esther Hayut, said this is not judicial reform, it is a direct attempt to crush the judicial system and the independence of the Supreme Court and to push Israel out of the family of democratic nations. So I propose to your listeners to believe our Supreme Court chief rather than Mark Regev.
But is it possible that both are true, that these were huge, impressive, the biggest protests, but that also it's true that 60%, according to Mark Regev, presumably he's quoting a poll that was done legitimately, 60% of Israelis support the reforms. Can both not be true?
No, it's not. It's not true. I don't want to say that Mark Regev didn't tell the truth to Times Radio, but it's not true objectively. It has nothing to do with reality. Okay. Recent polls yesterday in all main channels showed that half of Netanyahu voters do not support this reform, and they want the whole thing to be stopped, and probably some negotiation take place. But I strongly believe that this negotiation cannot place under a gun to the temple of the nation, namely with those legislation, some of them really bizarre laws are already on the table, already passed the preliminary and first reading and could be completed within few hours in the Knesset. You cannot run any negotiation under such a gun to your temple, and I propose to the heads of opposition, the president, to put it as a precondition that first of all, before any negotiations start, those kind of legislations of the last few weeks should be cancelled.
I mean, just to be fair on Mark Regev, he did actually say that he felt that the way this had been approached was wrong and that Benjamin Netanyahu should have built more consensus before trying to push all this through.
Yeah, that's true. He made several mistakes that put his judgment under big question mark. He fired in a 1 hour notice the Minister of Defense of Israel, the man who is responsible to our armed forces, who demanded to gather the inner cabinet in order to discuss what he called imminent and apparent risk to the security of the country based on the intelligence material that he has on his table and based on the consequences of this rapid kind of legislation. The Prime Minister refused to do it. That's unheard of. I served longer than anyone else as a Prime Minister, served most of my adult life in uniform. It's unheard of, never happened in the history of the country. And the reason that Netanyahu didn't gather the cabinet is very simple. The next day morning, there should be a vote in the Knesset for his, what I called kind of blatant illegitimate legislation to kill the independence of Supreme Court. So he was afraid that once the 16 members of the cabinet will hear the head of intelligence and the head of the armed forces and the minister, they won't vote for him. And we never heard of a case when private interests of prime minister can block a cabinet from meeting.
Okay, Mr. Barak, I just want to ask one more question very, very quickly, which is that it may be that, that Benjamin Netanyahu has overstepped the mark. He's had to put on hold these plans. That, that may be the end of him. Who knows? What does all of this mean for the Israeli left?
It's not left and right. We are now divided. The majority of the country believe that we are a democracy. We should stay a democracy. We are not going to go dictatorship. The fighters of the Air Force, the cyber fighters, and the special forces, the equivalent of your SAS. Most of them are reservists, volunteers. They told loud and clear, we have a contract with democracy. We are ready to risk our life. We buried our comrades. Even when we totally questioned the policies of our government, but it was democratic government. We won't serve a dictator. We don't have a contract with dictator. We are not there.
Okay.
And that's what basically cornered Netanyahu into capitulating to the protest.